Around 58 to 62 AD, Paul wrote to a church in a letter we now call Colossians. And this area was deeply pagan and had a lot of moral issues going on. It was very immoral. But believers there, like believers here today, are not to take our cues from culture, but from God above. In addition to correcting some doctrinal issues specifically around Jesus, his identity, and his deity, Paul instructed the church in Christian ways of living, starting with the self, and then the family, and the home, and then work, and how to treat others. And a theme threaded throughout this letter is how Jesus is sufficient in meeting our needs in every area of life. He first saved us, and now he sanctifies us. He grows us and encourages us. He corrects us all to be more like him. So Colossians 3 verses 1 through 4 really begin this focus on practical Christian living, on being sanctified in Jesus. It's all based on biblical truths. It's founded on the Word of God, like we've been reading about a lot in Psalm 119 this summer, like we spoke about last week, talking about the foundations that Nehemiah exhibited. So Colossians 3, starting in verse 1. If, or since, then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is, sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth, for you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Being raised with Christ is our identity, and because we were raised with Christ, we can seek the things which are above. Because we were raised with Christ, we can be empowered to act like he did after he rose. And how did he act? After his resurrection, Jesus left the tomb. We can too. We don't live in death or fear of death anymore. We leave behind the old self and we walk in the light and life and freedom that Jesus offers, that he bestows upon us. After his resurrection, Jesus spent his remaining time fellowshipping and ministering to his disciples. And we can mimic that. We can live our lives to be with and to serve others. We can follow his example. We can love like he loves. We can reflect and shine his light like we talked about just a few weeks ago. After his resurrection, Jesus looked to heaven, knowing that he would soon ascend there. We can look up too, recognizing that our citizenship is in heaven, being ever ready for his return, with our hearts longing for his return, looking forward to when we can be together with him in his presence. See, if then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Since King Jesus is on the throne in heaven, reigning in majesty, we look there, we seek those things. Like a compass pointing north, we should point up to him. Seek those things which are above. That word seek, it means aspiring, desiring with a great passion. And set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. If we are to set our mind on things above, we must fill our hearts and our minds with things of God, with reading his word. This church Paul wrote to was struggling with discerning the true doctrines, right? And we must read the word in order to not be led astray. Spurgeon wrote about how discernment is really not just telling the truth from a lie, but telling the truth from a near truth. You've probably heard the example of how the people tasked with identifying the counterfeit dollar bills, how they don't study counterfeits. They study the real thing. They become so familiar with the authentic money that they can spot the imposters, the mimics, the fakes. Likewise, we are to know the difference between truth and lie, between truth and near truth. We must first know the word. We also set our mind on things above by attending Jesus' church, by being people of prayer. Again, another lesson we picked up last week when we talked about the character of Nehemiah. We listen, we read, we take part in things that please God. The only way we can live like this is to take direction from outside of our culture. To set our minds on things above, we need to make our foundation the rock of Jesus, the truth of his word, which guides our path. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. So set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth, for you died and your life is hidden with Christ in God. With Christ, who is our life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. To be hidden with Christ offers security, protection, relationship with Jesus. The promise of the return of Jesus is not only that we will see his glory, but that we will also appear with him in glory, be taken with him. He is our life. And so Colossians 3:5-7, therefore, put to death your members which are on the earth, the fornication, uncleanliness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. Because we are identified as being raised with Christ, we are called to put to death the things that are contrary to this new identity, to being rooted in him, connected with him, hidden with him, yoked with him. The wording here, to put to death, it's emphatic. It means to make dead. We are not simply to suppress evil acts or attitudes or desires, but to wipe them out entirely. And he strengthens us to do that. And his word shows us the way. After this, Paul lists and names sins. Jesus didn't walk in these sins, so we who identify with him shouldn't either. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. The sins listed are the path the world walks, but not the way that Jesus did, not the way that we should. The sins here invite the wrath of God, indicating how our fallen world is in rebellion against God, in bondage to sin, how all of us take part in these sins. We were all trapped here. We were all dead in sin, walking in darkness. But notice the past tense. We once walked this way. But now we're alive with Christ. We're forgiven in him. We walk with him. We walk in his ways. So we, Colossians 3:8-11, put off these things, anger and wrath and malice and blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouths. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds, and you have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created him, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ in all, is all, and in all. We put off the old habits and sins, like getting rid of a suit that doesn't fit anymore, because we're made in the image of him who created us. We're renewed in knowledge. The Spirit helps us to understand the word, to thirst for it, to hunger for it, to want more of it. We must be continually renewed, sanctified, made more like Christ by his power and in his Spirit, where there is neither Jew nor Greek, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and in all. Those raised with Christ are a part of a family. We're united in him. Over race, over nationality, over class or culture or ethnicity, Jesus breaks down all of these barriers. Christ is all and in all. So why am I sitting in a hot car? Because I'm sitting under a sunroof. It's silly, but it's just a little reminder for me to look up, to set my mind on things above, to set my mind on Jesus, to expect his return. So friends, keep looking.